over 15 years, Saturdays and Illegal Curve have been synonymous with one another. With insight, analysis, and interviews regarding the Winnipeg Jets, the Manitoba Moose, and all around the NHL, here are Dave Manouk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mindell. The Illegal Curve Hockey Show, presented by Play Now, the official sports betting partner of the Winnipeg Jets, starts now.
Good morning, Winnipeg. Good morning, Manitoba. For all those joining us live this morning on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms, we say good morning, universe, and welcome to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. As you can see, I'm sort of wedged into a corner of the Pan Am pool where I am doing double duty this morning for as long as I can possibly pull this off as both an Illegal Curve host and a swim dad. So that shall be a fun experiment over the next couple of hours. Fortunately, we have Dave Manouk and Connor Harabchuk here, as they're absolutely going to drive this bus of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show this morning. After last night's league-wide respite, we know where everything stands. We have 4 games to go for the Winnipeg Jets. 6 days until the end of the regular season next Thursday after they play the San Jose Sharks. David, Connor, good morning to you two gentlemen. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Drew. You pulled the rug out from under me. I thought I was going to be doing the hosting duties. it was going to be a lot of pressure to try and, be able to say good morning, Winnipeg, good morning, Manitoba with you right there. It's not a normal thing for me to host with you in the chat, which is why Connor, I think Drew stole the thunder and decided to do the intro duties himself. That's fine. We're happy to do that, and we're happy to see to talk hockey a couple hours. Drew will join us for a little bit. We got Sarah Alleski coming on in about 7 minutes because Jets morning skate. It is, of course, a 6 o'clock start. Jets take on the Flyers. All important game. So Sarah's going to join us at 9:10 to talk about the Jets, and then at about 10:30, we're going to have Anthony Sanfalippo, who's one of our longtime guests, dating all the way back to our 1290 days, and he covers the Flyers for a site called Crossing Broad, and we love Anthony. Anthony's been a big part of our lives, dating back for, at least the 2014 draft in Philadelphia, but even well before that. So we should have a fun show today. Connor, welcome aboard.
Yes, thank you guys for having me. Looking forward to this game tonight. As you said last night, Drew, no games in the NHL. Who thought that was a great idea to have no games on the last Friday of the NHL regular season? But hey, every single team almost is in action today. And as much of a big game as this is for the Winnipeg Jets, it's a massive one for the Philadelphia Flyers. Like, you look at some of the playoff odds, money puck, they have the swings if they win or lose in regulation. This game has about a 40% swing for the Philadelphia Flyers. And obviously for the Jets, we're in win out mode, right? Like, if they drop any of these games, it would be detrimental to their playoff odds. But for Philly, this is a massive game tonight too. So I'm expecting a good one. Hockey Night in Canada. It's going to be great.
So here's the thing, Drew. Here's the thing I was going to say. This is how I was going to start the show, with or without you, I should say. But to me, the part that as I was writing the kind of game preview for tonight's game, is the Jets were 3 points back of a playoff spot with 7 games to go last Saturday after they lost to Dallas and had won 3 prior to that. Now the Jets have won all 3 of their games this week and remain 3 points out of a playoff spot with 4 games to go. So it is, as Connor says, it is a must-win game for Winnipeg because they have run out of runway. But isn't it amazing, Drew, that even as well as they've played and as piling up the wins, this team is no closer to a wild card spot. And let me tell you, wrote it in the illegalcurve.com morning papers. Every Jets fan better be putting on an Oilers jersey tonight because I believe the Oilers are playing the Kings. So you'll be cheering. Right. You're going to have to hold your nose and forget about the Smythe division because you're going to be cheering for the Oilers tonight.
Well, if it wasn't bad enough that you have to cheer for the Oilers, you also have to cheer for the Minnesota Wild because they play the Predators today as well. So, I mean, it is definitely sort of a hold your nose, the enemy of my enemy is my friend sort of situation for the Winnipeg Jets. But all that they've been saying and the mantra that they've been echoing for the last number of weeks has been take care of what we can take care of, which is their own game. And they were successful this week in doing so. Winning the games they needed to win this week, going into some difficult barns and winning some games there, obviously winning at home as well. But now they have to face the Philadelphia Flyers, a desperate Philadelphia Flyers team, as Connor said, they're in the thick of a fight as well on a Saturday night. I mean, this is, if you had said, and we've sort of been harping on this, but If you had said at the end of the Olympic break, Connor, that the Jets' last game at home on a Saturday night is going to be a meaningful one, most people would not have expected that to be the case. That given where they were in the standings, given how they had played, given how the tenor of their season had gone so far, nobody would have thought that. So just the fact that we are here right now having a meaningful final Saturday night in and of itself makes tonight's game even that much more special. And oh, by the way, anytime the Flyers come to town, given their historic ties to the Manitoba community, it's also that much more special as well. So it should be one of the most fun environments, fun atmospheres, highest stakes games possible tonight in downtown Winnipeg.
Yeah, I was on Winnipeg Sports Talk this week filling in for Remo. And when he told me about I was filling in this week in mid-January, I was like, great, these games are going to mean absolutely nothing. Thanks for giving me the last 4 of the season that are meaningless, right? But no, they actually mean something. And look, the Jets have gotten an incredible amount of help. These teams in the wildcard 2 race have been sliding coming out of the break. Maybe recently, as Dave outlined, the Jets have won 3 in a row and they still haven't moved. So maybe recently they haven't gotten an insane amount of help. But to the Jets' credit too, like they've been playing much better coming out of the Olympic break. You look at the standings since the Olympic break, the Jets are the second best team in the West behind only the Colorado Avalanche. They're 13-5-4. Colorado's 15-7-1. And the Jets have 2 wins over Colorado in that time since the Olympic break as well. So they've been one of the better teams in the West, one of the best teams in the league since the Olympic break. And that's what we were saying coming out of it. That's what was going to have to happen if a game like tonight was going to mean something. So it's a statement on how kind of poor the rest of the wild card race has been and how good the Jets have been, to their credit, that tonight's game actually does mean something.
And it's funny though, because you're right, Connor, I was thinking that, like, I was like, wow, this is, it's the Jets team that has done something significant. The problem is, as I outlined earlier, will they run out of runway or not? And like Drew said, who would have thought? I mean, I'll admit it, we were writing the death knell of this team. We were saying like, okay, by game 15, you're going to call up your 3 recalls that they held on to, and you're going to make them available, and you're going to start throwing guys into the lineup. Well, I'm not so certain about that anymore. Yeah. It does not look like, anybody is going to be making their NHL debuts for the Jets. Well, I shouldn't say that. If the continued trajectory of winning continues to take place, then that would be the reality. Obviously, if the Jets are no longer in the playoff run, then yes, they'll make those recalls and get guys into maybe that last game against San Jose. But yeah, I mean, if you would have asked me if this sort of last week of the season was going to have significance, 3 weeks ago, I would not have believed it was going to be the case. Or like you said, when you're 11 points out with all these 3-point games, it seemed very unlikely. When they halved it, suddenly you're like, okay, maybe there's something there. And now down to 3. But like I said, the math is difficult, knowing that they've won 3 in a row and didn't gain. Well, they gained on Nashville, but they didn't gain any on the wild card 2 spot.
Right, exactly to your point, Dave. It's just, it is one step forward and then almost one step back just by nature of so many of these games. It seemed like last week or the last 10 days, every team the Jets were trying to catch and trying to chase down in the course of the playoff race was playing against one another so that somebody was going to get 2 points in those games, even if it wasn't very deserving. The LA Kings, of course, are the top threat to still claim the wild card 2 spot. Given that one, they're ahead of Nashville and the Jets. 2, given that Nashville only has 3 games remaining compared to the 4 that everybody else has. And 3, given that the LA Kings have the softest of the schedules available to them remaining for the rest of the season. Of course, the LA Kings, as it happens, given that they've only won 20 regulation hockey games this year, are probably the worst candidate for that wild card 2 spot in terms of the deserve-o-meter, which I just made up. It doesn't actually exist. But, that's just the nature of the 3-point games that the NHL loves to promote and loves to produce. It almost to some effect minimizes the importance of winning in regulation. And that's where the Jets find themselves, given all those games, so many of those games earlier in the year that we've chronicled ad nauseum, where the Jets just couldn't squeeze out 1 point. Imagine if they had taken a few of those more to a playoff spot, or into extra time, they'd be heads and shoulders clearly in a playoff spot as it matters right now.
Well, Drew, if the Jets miss by 1 or 2 points, the end of season autopsy on all the ridiculous ways that they burned points in December and January is going to be insane. Like, who remembers that Minnesota Wild game coming out of the holiday break where Kyle Connor's shooting the puck into the empty net and Dylan DeMello is taking a penalty 200 feet away, Wild score, winning an OT? That's a point. That point could really matter right now. Like, there's so many things, so many little games, and obviously like the Leafs game on New Year's Day is the one that gets brought up a lot, the 4-1 lead that they blew. There's so many games you could go back throughout the season, and yeah, they could have got a point here, could have got a point there, and it would make a huge difference in this wild card 2 race right now. I will say, we talked about this on WST this week. For all the people that want a 3-2-1 point system, the LA Kings have to be the best example we've gotten in a long time. I mean, we talked a lot when the Jets were bad about what's like an unethical or ethical tank. What the LA Kings are doing is an incredibly unethical playoff berth with 20 regulation wins, and they're in wild card 2. It's ridiculous. But yeah, big one for the Jets tonight, and we'll see if they can keep pace with the LA Kings, who are probably going to be in overtime against the Oilers if trends say anything, right?
All right. Well, let's bring Sarah to the chat. And Sarah Alleski, Jets host, is there at the place where she does the check-in for pregame. Hi, Sarah. How are you?
Morning, guys. How you doing?
We're doing well. You know, Sarah, what the subject of our conversation this morning here on the Legal Curve Hockey Show, as we get folks ready for the Jets and Flyers, was the fact that even though the Jets have won 3 games, last Saturday when we did our show, they were 3 points back of the second wildcard spot. They've won 3, but they still remain 3 points back. So it's just kind of an illustration of how tough the math is, given only 4 games left.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, to be honest, I'm so impressed that they've closed it to 3, because if you had told me coming out of the Olympic break, 11 points back, I mean, as I said at that point, look, to be honest, there's no way, based on what we've seen in previous seasons. So there's no way you can make up 11 points and jump over, and not even the points, but also the number of teams that you needed to jump over as well. And I said the math just wasn't mathing at that point for it. So for them to be able to pull it within 3, and certainly what impresses me about this team, honest, is that they have closed that gap. And we came out of that break, and you think about teams across the league, and in particular, when you think about, say, the East, we can all use the example of the Toronto Maple Leafs and what's happened there, that we saw teams come out of the break where the math wasn't in their favor, that haven't produced the way that the Jets have. And I think the fight that this team has shown, they've said, and it's true, you can only take care of and control what you can control. They've done it to the best of their ability so far, and chips fall where they may. But I mean, certainly when you look at the schedule that the Jets have in their remaining 4 games, and you look at the schedule that the LA Kings have theirs, I mean, you would have to think that LA is going to be able to pull out that second wildcard spot, but we'll see. It's going to make it exciting down the stretch. And again, if you had told me at the end of February that it was going to be potentially coming down to a game on Thursday, I mean, who wouldn't have said that they were all in for something like that?
You're absolutely right, Sarah. And, I was opining about this on the post-game show on Thursday night that, as we're here now with 4 games to go, and, they were talking about pressure, and the feeling of the pressure and knowing that you really have no margin for error, I would say, I was saying that to some extent, I think the fact that they're in this position is, and they feel that pressure and they have that pressure, that in and of itself is an enjoyable feeling for them, given where things were not that long ago. That they've earned the right to feel this pressure, as opposed to being burdened by it. I can see how you can almost embrace the achievement to get to this point. Obviously, you never want to be where you were, to have to struggle and scratch and claw to get here. But the fact that they've done so, where so many other teams have wilted in the same sort of situation, in and of itself is an accomplishment.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And have embraced it. And their top player, what do you need down the stretch? Your top players to be your top players. They have been, much like they have been all season. You continue to see Mark Scheifele, Kyle Connor, the way Josh Morrissey, obviously with the game that he had, that he's had throughout the season, but really when you look at the way that he played in St. Louis as well in that last game, it is a positive for them to be able to feel kind of, this pressure and to rise to the occasion. And that's where I think that going forward, regardless of how this ends, everybody wants to see a whiteout. I mean, whether you are, I think whether you're in the media, whether you're fans, because the whiteout's such a great experience. And we all know that there's nothing that can compare to playoff hockey. But if they don't make it in, I think that if you are a fan, that you can look at it and go, okay, so this was more of an anomaly of a year. We know the issues that were at hand. We know there's all the injuries that they had to contend with, various things that this is a situation that you look and go, oh, this off season, this is one where, they're really going to you're going to have to rebuild, or I think that you look at the pieces that are here and go, okay, this is a team that next year should be right back into that playoff hunt. And there's a lot of, you want to see a team that shows heart. And I think this team has shown heart down the stretch. And that's something that if you're a fan that you can get behind.
Sarah, you mentioned Mark Scheifele in the comment that, your best players have to be your best players. Obviously, he's 1 point away from 100. I was joking earlier in the week that it feels like we've done 10 post games this year with Mark Scheifele where he's hit some massive milestone. Are we going to be doing another post game tonight with Mark Scheifele after he hits 100 points? I mean, he's playing so well. Him and Kyle Connor and Alex Iafallo as well. Just what have you thought of Mark Scheifele recently and his quest for 100 points?
Yeah, I mean, the people in our department that deal with graphics certainly have had that they've had to do with career numbers, another career highlight, another franchise record. I would certainly look, Mark Scheifele, if you had to say, are you going to bet that he's going to get a point or not? Yes, my odds are that he's going to. Could he get 2 tonight and pass Marion and get the most in franchise history? Yes. Especially I think when you're looking at playing at Canada Life Center. This guy loves scoring in front of the home crowd and racking up assists. And so if you had to put money on it, I would say, that post-game, Connor, you're likely to be Mark Scheifele hitting the 100-point mark. And he's another one that going into the Olympic break, and with everything that was hanging over it, he thought, okay, you knew what the added incentive was for him this year of trying to make that Olympic team, didn't make it. What was he going to look like coming out of the break? What was Kyle Connor going to look like coming out of the break with the struggles, that the Olympics were for him? Both of them have continued at the pace that they've been on. They've both led the way. And I think it's impressive to continue to see what they're able to do. And so that you hope that, again, regardless of how this season ends, that next year they're able to keep it going and capitalize. And maybe with the influx of some younger players that we've seen too, that they can help lead the way and get this team to the heights that everybody has always hoped that they've been able to get to.
Our guest this morning on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show is Sarah Alleski. Sarah, one of the guys that I think probably deserves a lot of focus because he's had a really good season for the Winnipeg Jets is Gabriel Vilardi. And, he's nominated for the King Clancy for a player who best exemplifies leadership on and off the ice. And it's just remarkable. I mean, again, we're talking about career milestones, obviously not as significant as Mark Scheifele's, but for him, the game's played one. I know he downplays it, but it is significant that he's played in all the Jets games, his points, just the fact that he went to the second line has become a driver on that second line. I mean, what have you seen from Gabriel Vilardi after he signed his big long-term extension?
Yeah, first, I think he's an excellent choice for King Clancy for the Jets. I love the way, if you had the opportunity to watch the home ice that we did with Gabe and with his girlfriend, Meg, I mean, those two have really embraced this city. I mean, unique personality, which I love. But he goes, well, I just love being here. He's just really epitomizes kind of that. So I'm going to use something that a tabloidish magazine uses, stars, they're just like us. So, and that's what I feel though with Gabe is that, he's achieved what he's achieved, but he really, when you talk to him, he's just the most normal guy in that respect. But what he's done with the community and helping out with P11 and with talking to youth around this city and being open about his mental health struggles, I think is great. to the point of on the ice, his ability to go down there and help drive the second line, I think has been great, because what did we see beforehand was that the second lines struggled to find someone that could drive on it. There was the talk about not having obviously Nikolai Ehlers this year and the drop off on the second line. You have Adam Lowry, who I think has done a good job, but isn't a second line center. If you were to put out what your ideal roster was, he is a tremendous third line center, and we love what he's done there. But I think that you'd be looking for somebody that has a little bit more offensive upswing for your second line center. But Gabe has done a great job there, and he has been able to ignite some of the offense from there. And I think that that's been so important, because for so much of this season, what we looked at was that the Jets struggled to find consistency scoring with anyone but that top line. So to be able to spread it out a little bit more, to be able to have Cole Perfetti, to be able to have Gabe Vilardi, and then your bottom six chip in, is key. And I think it's a great sign for Gabe as he continues to evolve in his career and what his role can be in this organization, with this, that he isn't just somebody that is having success because he's with Mark and Kyle, which I think a lot of people you can look at. I always think of, so when I first started covering the NHL, and I covered the Canucks, and so the Sedins were on a line together. On the wing with the Sedins, always had great numbers and always had career years and everything like that, because they benefited from it. I think and then you'd see guys go and they'd sign deals in other markets and they wouldn't have the same sort of success because the Sedins were the drivers. I think that it's beneficial for Gabe to be able to see what he do, and for him to help produce on a line that he's been able to showcase his offensive skill without having to rely on a Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor.
Sarah, at no point in this season did any of us, I think, expect that the save of the year would have been one made by Josh Morrissey. But that certainly was the case after what he did on Thursday night in St. Louis, coming up with an absolute goal line robbery of, I think it was Dylan Holloway, if I remember correctly. But Josh Morrissey, you talk about stars on the Jets elevating their games over the last number of weeks. Josh Morrissey, I think, is probably the unsung hero to some extent, in that he isn't, he's not getting to 100 points like Mark Scheifele is. He doesn't necessarily get the goals like we see Kyle Connor getting. But Josh Morrissey, to me, has been probably the catalyst for the Winnipeg Jets as a unit in sort of elevating their game and dragging the team back into the fight where they're currently in for the last playoff spot. I mean, is Josh Morrissey maybe not even getting as much appreciation in the market this year for just how important he's been over the last 4 to 6 weeks?
Well, if that's the case, I think it's because we've gotten so used to seeing Josh do great things, right? That sometimes that you appreciate it when it originally happens and they take that first step forward, but then once it's what you expect from Josh now. So I think that sometimes it's the same thing that you could say, we discussed in previous seasons about Kyle Connor, and does he get the credit that he deserves for everything, for being the great goal scorer? When you're used to seeing it all the time, I think that it becomes easy to, it's not that you don't appreciate it, but it just becomes, it becomes more of something that you expect. And so with Josh and what he's been able to do recently, I think that people appreciate it. I think that it shows you just how valuable he is, particularly when he is up with that top line and working with them. And they wouldn't be where they were without him. And we've seen the number of injuries that the Winnipeg Jets have had to contend with this year has been significant. The injuries when Josh Morrissey was out of the lineup, significant. You can't replace that. He is their number one defenseman without question. He is, would argue, top 5, top 10 in the league, and continues to show by his leadership right now why he's acted. It's because Jamie Thomas has walked into the studio with his apple fritter donut, his coffee, making noise, He says not apple fritter. If there's something I can tell you guys all about Jamie Thomas, it's that every single day the man gets an apple fritter.
Really?
Does he share?
Every day. No, now he's left, and now I've embarrassed him because I've outed him for his
But
sweet
does he
tooth,
share?
but-
Does he bring you one?
No, you would think he would at least offer, but no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw both of you at City Place, standing in line. Was that about a couple weeks ago? And I got to say,
Yeah.
Jamie didn't offer to get us anything either.
Just saying. It's, I would offer, but no, you can't help it. I can only do so much. I'm just joking, but I'm not joking about the apple fritter. The man loves apple fritters.
Okay, there you go. Sarah, another part of this Jets season and really their resurgence as of late has been the supporting cast. Like Cole Perfetti's looking more like himself coming off the high ankle sprain.
Mm-hmm.
Adam Lowry, you mentioned him, maybe not a second line center, but still looking more like himself on that second line with Velarde and Perfetti. Pionk coming back and getting better by the game. Dylan Sandberg recovering from the broken wrist earlier in the year, looking more like himself. How much do you think that has played a role in the Jets being the second best team in the West since the Olympic break? Is not only are Scheifele, Connor, and Morrissey still doing their thing, but the secondary cast that was largely missing for the first half of the season is not only back in the lineup, but looking more like themselves.
Well, I mean, you can't go on the run that they've gone on without having that secondary cast. And they've improved. I mean, the metrics, and I mean, I'm sure you guys have talked about it. And Connor, I've seen some of your tweets or your posts about it as well. The improvements that they have made, not just in terms of their record, but just their overall numbers. It really from Baker at the beginning of March on has been substantial, and you can't go with just one line functioning. And when we saw early on, and we saw that they couldn't score earlier on in the season, well, why was that? Because they weren't getting the secondary scoring. But across the board, I feel that everybody's bought in for all of the struggles that they had early on. It's as if, and I don't know, I mean, I know that guys talk about how during the Olympic break, it was great that they were able to come back, have almost that mini training camp and then go on. But this is something where I just feel as if people have all bought in how they need to play. Is it always the most exciting hockey? No, it isn't. I mean, it doesn't always lead to but what are you looking for right now? You're looking for 2 points. That's what you care most about. I mean, and so everybody's bought into how they need to do it. They are throwing their bodies around more. They are contributing more. And I think that everybody's been able to feed off of each other. And it's really, if they make it in, it's been a collective team effort in order for them to be able to get there. If they fall short, and they did everything that they could. And before I came on, I heard you guys talk, and Connor, you listed some of the games that'll go back, that'll haunt the Jets for what could have been. And I look at that month of December, you had 2 regulation wins, right? When it all comes down to it, if you had gone even closer to 500, just a couple of ones that you would have, that they would very possibly be in that final wild card spot. So, but the idea that everybody has played a role in this, everybody has grabbed their share of the rope and like, all right, we're doing everything we can. There's going to be no doubt that when this regular season ends, that I think everybody should be able to look themselves in the mirror and say, I left it all out there to try to do everything we could in order to get us to the postseason. And if it falls short, it falls short. But at least, again, when you're building for the future, when you're looking at next season, when you're looking at the pieces, it gives you the confidence that this isn't a team that needs this big reset, that needs that's missing all of these key pieces. Yes, they need to augment the roster in certain ways. That'll be inevitable as it is every year. But this is a team that still is going to be very competitive for seasons to come.
Sarah, we mentioned that.
Sorry, Dave, let me just jump in for 1 second and say I'm jumping out to watch my daughter swim, but I'll be back. Hi, Sarah. Bye, Sarah. I'll see you all in a bit.
All right. He was with us. He was with us, and now he's returning to being swim dad at the Pan Am pool. So, Drew,
I love it.
Drew was desperate to be on, Sarah. He knew you were going to be on, so he insisted. it was going to be just the Connor and Dave show. Although I'm right now being impacted by the sun, apparently. So either that or I got to get out there and get a little more vitamin D. And Drew somehow decided to just jump on and do the show from there. So we thank Drew for joining us. And now it's just the Connor and Dave show. And I know, Sarah, you've got an interview, so we'll just get a couple more questions in with you. But I mentioned that when I asked you about Gabe Velarde, he was nominated for the King Clancy, and this week it was revealed that Jonathan Toews will be the nominee for the Bill Masterton Award. And there's, not a surprise there. I mean, that was a pretty unanimous vote by those of us who vote for that award. And I just thought that it's been such a remarkable season for Jonathan Toews. I mean, and Scott O'Neill talked about it when we were with him the other day, and you were there. Just of all the years for him to come back, this could have been the worst of all of them because of how condensed the schedule was. And yet he's played 78 games. And one of the other details that Kelly Moore pointed out when we were talking to Toews about the nomination was the fact that of the, I think of all the players in the NHL have taken more than 500 faceoffs, only 2 guys have more wins than he does. It just goes to show how impactful he's been. Just in your assessment, I mean, 11 goals, 17 assists, 78 games played. How would you assess the year for Jonathan Toews? And the question I have, and I know you can't really answer, so it's more speculation nation. Do you think he comes back next year?
I mean, to be honest, I hope he comes back next year. And I know that, look, that can be, I've seen the chats, I've seen the comments. It can be a polarizing opinion on it. I think that it depends on what the role is. Do I think that to have him come back and fit in the top 6? No. But do I think that he can still contribute if you're on the right deal and utilized in the right way? Absolutely. I think what he has done has been tremendous and is not to be, whether there have been ebbs and flows to it. I don't think it can be underestimated how difficult it is to do what he did and what he's been doing. The fact that he hasn't missed any games in this schedule, I don't know about you guys. I was joking with one player, said, I've found this season so tiring with 3 games in 4 days and 5 it goes on. And so I can only imagine from a player perspective, guys, he isn't 25 years old and he does have a lot of miles on him anyways, based on the amount of hockey that he's played over his career. But beyond that, he has come back from significant health issues 2 years away. It is lineup and get into the league and play professional hockey at any point in time. To do it when you take a 2-year break and then come back and be able to impact in certain ways that he has, I think is tremendous. I think it should be inspiring. I think it's a testament to not only his dedication, perhaps at times of not wanting to give up on the dream of returning to the NHL. And I am a fan of anybody, whenever his career ends, of anybody being able to go out on their own terms, because we know that that's something that not everybody gets to do. They don't get to do it in our business all the time. They don't get to do it as a professional athlete. How many times do you see that decision made for them? The fact that he was willing, and he could have just said, no, thanks, guys. I have had a first ballot Hall of Fame career. I am just going to recover from my health ailments and I'm going to, enjoy retirement. And he said, no, I'm going to back. It's tremendous. And I think, as I said, that he has been able to make an impact with this team on the ice, off the ice. I hope he comes back. I hope that, I think that you just need to have expectations of him being a second line center. Maybe we're high given what he's had to come back from in order to be a second line center for 82 games. But for him to be able to come back and he's still contributing, there is value in him. I hope that he comes back. I have a soft spot for the story. So I think that he's a good add-on to this team. You just need to make sure, much like everybody, that if you can cast them in the right role.
Yeah. And even Kyle Connor, the other day, we were talking to him after one of the practices, and he mentioned that if he took 2 years off and came back, he didn't think he could do it either and play a full 82 games. But here he is, Jonathan Toews, down the stretch here on track to play a full season and has played in every game so far. As for tonight's game, Sarah, what are you kind of expecting? Obviously, it's a big game for the Winnipeg Jets. We're in this kind of have to win out and maybe get help mode and out of town scoreboard watching every single night. It's a massive game for the Philadelphia Flyers as well.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you kind of expecting tonight between these two teams?
Well, I'm thrilled that this game means so much to both teams because
Same.
And not that you wouldn't expect effort on both sides anyways, but if somebody has locked up first in, the conference or it doesn't matter as much to them, or they're way out of the playoff picture, it doesn't have the same sort of juice. I love when you've got two teams late in the season that for their respective reasons are like, no, we got to leave it all out there. I expect the Jets to come in and try to set the tone for the game, try to implement their game early on. I think that it's going to be a big night for the top line. It's per usual. And one of the things that I've really liked too about the way that the Jets have played in the last while is that when they have gotten down, and we know they've given up the first goal, I think it's in their last 5 games. It's a team now that it reminds me a bit like last year. Last year when the team got down, you never really got that concerned about it because you knew that they always had a push coming for them. It was one of I thought, the greatest strengths of the team last year. And so early on in this season, when the team would get down, you didn't necessarily be able to come back and you didn't have the confidence that they would. I think that now with the way that they're playing, that I have the confidence that even if the Flyers were to strike first tonight, you go, that's fine. There's a lot of time left in this game. I think that we'll see a big game from the top line. I think that with this being a Saturday night with so much on the line, you've only got 2 home games season. I expect the atmosphere inside Canada Life Place to be great. And whether it's, I'll just leave it at that I expect the atmosphere in here to be great. And I expect the Jets to hopefully be able to feed off of it. And you always hope your home team or your home crowd to show. And that's what we look to see from them tonight.
All right, Sarah, well, we're going to let you go on this last question. And it's about the youngins, the young guys coming up. And we thought, again, somewhat erroneously because of the situation, that we'd be seeing some recalls, getting some rope, getting some runway, I should say, a chance to see them, what they could do at the NHL level for 3, 4, 5 games. Because like you said, and like we were talking about before you came on, at the Olympic break, when they were 11 points down, we're like, all right, well, at this point, you're going to be watching the young kids, and that's going to be kind of the benefit. But the reality is obviously changed and circumstances have changed. But we have been able to see 2, and that is Isak Rosen, who of course wasn't a member of the Winnipeg Jets before the trade deadline, and Brad Lambert. And I want to kind of key in on Brad Lambert, although if you want to talk about Rosen, you're welcome to, because to me, Lambert, a guy who's wasn't having a great season with the Moose, was doing a lot of the things that the coaching staff wanted him to do, but wasn't producing. But then again, not a lot of guys were producing. Comes up and, he wanted this opportunity. And one of the things he said that stuck out to me was just that he knew he wasn't going back down to the Moose if he made a mistake. It was that he was going to get a long kind of chance to prove himself at the NHL level. And then at the end of the season, if the Jets didn't make the playoffs, he was going to go back down and play for Manitoba. But from your perspective, what does it kind of look like from your viewing of what Brad Lambert's second run with the Jets has done for him?
Well, I've been impressed by it. And Dave, you can speak much more to his game than I can because of all the times that you've watched him, all the years you've watched him with the Moose. But I think that he went down earlier this season to the Moose and implemented what the coaching staff told him they needed to see from him. And when he got called up, I think that there's a lot of questions about what would we see from Brad, because wanting to know about the future. And I think that the Jets needed to see what they had in him, because that is when you are making those off-season adjustments, you need to know, okay, do I have a guy here that can play up at this level? Or is he somebody that needs to, that could be part of a trade to bring in someone else? And I think that he's come in and that he has certainly his speed. I think that he's shown that he looks very different out there than he did when he was up at the beginning of the season. And I think that's a testament to him buying in. it's the feedback that I heard from people around the organization was that, no, he looks totally different. And so he's showing that he can produce up here when given an opportunity, that there is something that you can build upon. And to be honest, I don't think that he had shown that before in his times up here. And so it's such a positive to have been able to get a glimpse of what they have so that you can look and go, okay, next season when the season starts, yep, we can find a place, believe, for Brad. And I don't think that was necessarily the thinking early on in this season. And taking advantage of the opportunity, there's so many players that have come up over the years. You think of the 15 seasons of players that have come up from the Moose that fans have always wanted to see, and they get given an opportunity and they don't make the most of it. I think that Brad is showing that he deserves to be up here. I love that that these young players have been able to grab the reins and just like, nope, I can. And maybe it is because of what you said, that they know they're not going back down right now, and you don't have that short leash and you can make mistakes. And I think that is important, that there's that safety net there, is go, okay, this isn't a one and done scenario for me. I think that they're showing that they can thrive, and putting them in these situations, seeing what they've been able to do. And I mean, obviously, say Salomonson sidelined, obviously, with injury, but being able to see what they can do in these high pressure situations is totally different as well. It would be different had they come up here and we're trying to play, going, okay, well, we're just playing out the string of 82 games. No, this is a high pressure situation. This is as intense as you're going to find for the regular season. And as much as you don't want to make a mistake, I mean, these mistakes can be costly. And so there is a different pressure on them. And so I think going forward that it's something that will benefit the Brad Lamberts of the organization, just like I think, to be honest, it'll benefit the veterans of this organization as well, that they see what's there. They can trust some of the younger players, but they also, it's a different experience when you're playing in pressure situations. Like, I don't think that, as much as we've seen the Jets have to play in pressure situations before over the years trying to get in, it's different when you were the President's Trophy winner. It's different when there were expectations for you. Those pressures are different this season than what they were, several years ago when you're just trying to claw your way in. All experiences that will help the Jets in the long run.
All right. Well, there she is. That is Sarah Alleski, senior producer and host. And you can check her out on the check-in for Jets and Flyers. Sarah, thank you very much for bringing your time and your insight to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show this morning.
Hey, always love being on with you guys. You guys, I mean, you guys have done a great job as always with the show. And I mean, kick the other guys out. It just needs to be the two of you going for it. That's fine too.
That is a strong endorsement, Sarah.
Don't tell them I said that, though.
We won't. Thanks, Sarah. Appreciate it.
Bye, guys. Have a great day.
We'll see you tonight. Okay, there she goes. That's Sarah Alleski, senior producer and host. You can check her out on the check-in later today with Jamie Thomas, the aforementioned apple fritter man, Jamie Thomas. And they'll be talking about the Jets and the Flyers. That's what Connor and I are doing. Drew may be joining us again. Connor, I have no idea. Who knows if Drew's joining us from his little bunker at the Pan Am pool, but we'll be talking. We're going to head to break to hear from our commercial sponsors. This is, of course, the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Make sure you've smashed that like button. Make sure you're subscribing to this channel so you know each and every single time we are going live, which you should know if you're a longtime viewer or listener. That is after every Jets game, after the final buzzer, maybe about 10 minutes after. And, of course, every Saturday morning for the last 17 years, Connor, right at 9 a.m. Well, not right at 9 a.m. Sometimes we slide in right at 9:02, 9:03. Back in our radio days, we were always on time. But now that it's been left to Ezzy, Drew, and I, it's not always so consistent. But anyways, we appreciate everyone joining us, and we appreciate Connor joining the show. Here are some words from our sponsors.
I want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
Do our profits benefit your community?
No. Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime. Visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Centre.
Boys, I've made an important life decision, and I need your support.
Oh boy.
I've decided to get a grill.
You mean a barbecue grill for cooking? Like, that's not an important life decision, Ezzy.
No. A grill for my teeth.
A grill for your teeth? Do I even want to know why you're doing this?
It's simple, really. Every time I go to Holt Dental, I get treated so very well by Dr. John and his team that I need to keep finding additional reasons to go back. I rely on Holt Dental for all of my dental needs, and they do it all, from regular cleanings to cosmetic dentistry. Plus, they have free parking at their front door, and you know how much I love my convenient parking.
For all your dental needs, Illegal Curve recommends Holt Dental, conveniently located on Taylor Avenue near Grant Park Mall. For more information, visit them online at holtdental.ca.
For over 40 years, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has been Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy. Renowned in the comedy world as a must-play venue, Rumors has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers, wedding socials, and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase show tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
Hey Winnipeg, Joe Carter here. I look forward to joining you in Winnipeg on June 4th for the Ray D. JCC Ken Cronson Sports Dinner. See you in June. Don't be late.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
Welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Connor Rabchak, by the way, Drew got it wrong. I didn't want to chastise him, but Drew, he did not get it right, Connor. No, this is all about Drew's the attention to detail, man. That was a detail that he was erroneous about. So Connor and I, Dave Minuk, are here at the helm. No Drew, no Ez. They won't be back tonight. I'll be running the show. I don't even know who I'm running the show with. It won't be
Solo.
a Dave Minuk. It won't be a Dave Minuk experience. Only Drew loves to do the Drew Mandel experience. I like to have.
You've heard a Minuk Moose Minute. How about a Minuk Jets Hour on the post-game show?
Yes. Well, I would Connor, you're closer to it with the first part of your point. I would probably more likely talk. Well, given what happened with the Moose yesterday, and we'll talk about it a little later in the show.
Sure.
But the Moose were looking fantastic against Texas, 4-0. You're like, all right, write this one off. They'll be 2 points back. Big game on Sunday. Now they won, but they blew it. But we'll talk about that a little later in this broadcast. For now, we'll head over, not literally, to what's going on at Canada Life Centre. Big thanks to Connor, by the way. He skipped going to morning skate. We saved him some parking fees, but he did agree to join us this morning for 2 hours of Jets Talk here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. And Connor, one of the things that our colleague Ken Wiebe of the Winnipeg Free Press, he mentioned that I don't believe, a couple things. One, no Elias Salawanson, so he's still dealing with what he's dealing with, which is being in concussion protocol. So that's less than ideal because, you talk about that runway. And I mean, not that we haven't seen him for a lot of games in consecutive games, but more just you ideally would have liked to have him in these types of situations playing for the Winnipeg Jets, but he is not. He remains in concussion protocol. And Morgan Barron, he was not skating as well, according to Ken Wiebe. Gustav Nyquist, Colin Miller, both in regular jerseys. So that was notable, but it doesn't seem to matter to the lineup, and no surprise after winning 3 straight games that they are not making any changes, including Connor Hellebuck playing his 400th straight game And so I guess we'll start there, Connor. Obviously, that's a bit of an information update for the folks, but just from your perspective, any surprises that we're not seeing any changes? I mean, I would imagine, I know your answer, but I got to ask the question anyways.
No, it's a good question, but I think it all ties together. You started that off by saying like, thank you, Connor, for skipping on a morning skate. And then it ends with, are you surprised that there's no changes? It's like, well, these are the Winnipeg Jets after all. Of course, there are no changes, right? Like, yeah, they won last game. The Winnipeg Jets, when was the last time they changed a winning lineup? Like, I think you'd have to go back to the last time they willingly sat Connor Hellebuck to talk about when they changed a winning lineup. But yeah, they're rolling with the same thing. I think it's bang on what you said about Salamonson, though, because we talked to Sarah, and she provided some great insight on Lambert and the younger players and how good of an experience this is for them down the stretch. And Salamonson was getting that great experience. And obviously he's hurt right now with the concussion. Would love to see him come back as soon as possible and get healthy because these are high pressure games. This is a home game that means something for the Winnipeg Jets. So for guys like Lambert and Roseanne, it's a good experience for them. It's not only are they in the NHL and getting that extended look, they're also playing meaningful hockey games, which I think is key. And you wanted to see that for Salamonson. He was doing it, and he was doing it at a very high level. And if you're talking about increasing the Winnipeg Jets' odds of winning tonight's game, you'd want Salamonson back, but obviously unable to do so as he's still injured from that hit on Jason Robertson a little bit earlier on in the past couple of weeks here. But yeah, no surprises for me. I don't know. It depends on who you look at, which line is the fourth line, Dave, in terms of, is Lambert on the fourth line, or is the fourth line really the Koepke, Toews, Roseanne line? I think they both played similar amount of minutes.
Maybe they're both fourth lines, Connor.
Maybe they're both fourth lines. Yeah, I think they play similar minutes. I don't really think it's that big of a deal. But these are the kind of things that you'd like to see wrinkles mid-game if the Jets are losing. You'd like to see more Roseanne and Lambert for pushing for more offense. If they're winning, then obviously the Jets have already done this. They start playing Koepke more because he's more of a defensive guy with the energy and the penalty killing and the shot blocks and all of that stuff. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But I thought Fleury and Bryson too, we've talked so much about the third pair throughout this season. Dave, less so since the trade deadline, but I've thought they've been great the past couple of games, especially Bryson in that game against St. Louis. I thought he was steady. He got a primary assist on Josh Morrissey's goal, if I'm not mistaken. I think that third pair has been solid. They've been quiet, which is what you want from your third pair. You don't want to notice them too much, right? So I don't know. No changes with the lineup, not shocking to me, but those are some of the things I'm watching for.
Well, okay, so I asked Sarah about this, and I think it's important to kind of get assessments and look, whether the Jets make the playoffs or not, the benefit will be the fact that, you know, you've had Brad Lambert in the lineup for as long as you have, and the fact that he's now played, 21 games for the Jets. Sorry, I'll be honest. I knew it was around there. I didn't know exactly, but I did check the stats. And so he has played 21 games. From your perspective, and we know his status for next year, and so the reality for you, has Brad Lambert done enough to be a full-time NHLer? And the other question I have, and I've seen Doug put it in the chat, we know that Brad Lambert prefers to play center. Do you think he gets that chance? And we know the Moose he went to Seattle. He was on the wing when he first came over to pro. He played pro, obviously, in Finland, came over here to North America with the Moose's first kind of, I think it was 14 games. And he played him on the wing. He went to Seattle, played junior, of course, with Milic and Bauer, went to the middle. And then when he came back that first year, when he had his most success with the Manitoba Moose, he had a big season, I think 50 points as a rookie. He was playing up the middle, and then the Moose moving back to wing, something we've seen before. We saw it with the most significant example in my mind was Jack Roslovic, because Jack Roslovic was he was better than Lambert, but he was a top 3 player in the AHL in, I want to say 17, 18. But the Moose decided to move him up to the wing instead of up the middle. You know, came up to the NHL and was mostly a winger with the Jets. I think he's had center opportunities elsewhere. But from your perspective, one, how have you kind of seen this run of Brad Lambert? And two, do you think he should get a chance to be up the middle?
Yeah, I'd like to see it, especially, I mean, we're at the point of the season. There's 4 games left. I can't really say the line that I've been saying for weeks that it's like, oh, whatever, you know, just try new things at this point, because this game, as we've said multiple times today, does mean something tonight, to the Jets' credit. But Look, I'm sure you've talked about this. We've talked about this for years, Dave. Velarde and Perfetti were drafted as centers, and they haven't been tried down the middle for the Winnipeg Jets. And the reasoning, the rationale that's used by fans or even coaches when asked about it is that they're not fast enough. The Jets system needs a speedy guy down the middle or a faster
for the record,
player.
Connor, sorry to interject. I don't disagree with. I think that
I don't either.
I think they're both probably a little slow to be up the middle, but regardless, continue.
No, I'm glad you brought that up because I'm with you on that. Like, I think that's a fair rationale, but Brad Lambert doesn't have that issue. If he has one thing, it's the skating, it's the speed. And obviously we've seen him in the dub and then in the AHL, when he gets moved to the middle, he looks more comfortable. He's producing more in the dub that year. He's producing at the same level as Dylan Guenther on the same team as the Seattle Thunderbirds. Right. And Dylan Guenther is a great player. Comes to the Moose, his first year with the Moose, Brad Lambert's 55 points in 64 games. And since then, it's just been slowly but surely getting a little bit worse. But I wouldn't mind to see it. I mean, the Jets seem to do this where they have an idea of what a player is. Like Brad Lambert is a speed guy, so he's on the wing, and he needs to use his speed on the wing, right? Where maybe he looks more comfortable at center, but the Jets and the Moose obviously have seen him play both. He's played both in the organization, not necessarily for the Winnipeg Jets. So I don't know. I'd like to see any of Perfetti, Velarde, or Lambert tried at center, just someone else. But I do agree or subscribe to the thinking that maybe in Perfetti and Velarde lack the foot speed to play that position, but a guy like Lambert doesn't. Obviously, he's still getting his feet wet in the NHL, but it is something I'd like to see in the next couple of years. I don't know. Where are you at on that?
No. I mean, I think so too. And I think it comes a function of, this is a guy. I mean, the only thing I could think of is maybe it's a strength issue. Maybe they don't feel like he's quite strong enough, quite in his man body to be ready to do the kind of heavy lifting that's required at center as, maybe that. Well, I mean, again, obviously they think Adam Lowry's sufficient, but like Sarah said, like we've all said for so long, I mean, like Lambert's only 22 years old, right? So he's still got some growing to do in terms of that sort of NHL opportunity. But I do think it's the conversation about the Jets center, second line center has been one for so long, right? Since Brian Little was the second line center, you replace him with Paul Stastny, and then obviously Little's career comes to an unexpectedly early end in 2019. But I mean, that's 7 years ago. And 7 years later, we're still talking about the Jets need to find a second line center. So it's definitely an organizational problem. Not to look ahead and start talking about summer topics while there's still 4 games in the regular season. But the fact of the matter is, you can't have this problem next year. You can't have a team where you do not have a second line center. And because eventually Mark Scheifele is going to be that second line center. If at this point in this trajectory, you can't wait. They may think they have it in Braden Yager, to be honest with you. Braden Yager's had a pretty good 10 goals, scored his 10th goal yesterday, has 30 points in 60 something games on a very low scoring Moose game.
I was going to say 30 points in 60 games for the Moose is like 50 points in 60 games for other AHL prospects.
Yeah,
with how little the Moose, the third last in goals still, right?
Well, they're last in the Central. They're
last in the Central.
They're a bottom 5 in terms of goal scoring. They're also one of the lowest goals against. They've got it both categories, but at the same time, Vicious is saying Zhilkin for center. Well, I mean, the Moose assessed Danny Zhilkin to be a number 1 center in the AHL. He scored a beautiful shootout game winner last night, second game winner that he has for the Moose in the shootout this season. But actually, that's one area they're quite good, which isn't a surprise given the fact that they've got young talent like Chibrikov and Yager and guys like Zhilkin and other talented, even Ville Heinola. Brad Lambert has a game winner for them, a shootout winner, sorry. Ville Heinola has Ville's was very nice, I should say, for them this year. But I mean, I think it's definitely going to be Brad's time to, really take this summer seriously. This is going to be an opportunity for him to, I'm not saying he's going to be on the up the middle or on the wing, but I mean, he has a chance to be focused whenever his summer begins. And we know the expectation is he'll join the Moose for whatever playoff run they go on if the Jets are unable to make it. But I really think of all the players, Here's your opportunity to try and seize it. Because, I started to say Braden Yager. I think they think he could be that. I've asked around the organization, and I've had some interesting conversations about Yager and whether he has what it takes. And he's got the moxie, he's got the confidence.
Yeah.
And I said, do you think his size is going to preclude him? They don't think that either. So I think that there's a belief in Yager, but there's not a belief, I don't think, in Yager for next year. And the problem for the Jets is always about aligning your needs and your reality, right? Because we saw this over a decade ago when they had this ready to go defense and they didn't have the offensive players because they had to let, and that was, guess what year that was, folks? That was 2016 when they decided to give Kyle Connor an extended run. They didn't make the playoffs that year, but they did give these young guys an opportunity to kind of get their feet wet. But the problem was they had the defense that was ready, and Connor Hellebuck obviously was getting his kind of full-time ready to go start with the Jets. So, Drew's back.
He's back.
Well. Look at
I'm
that.
back. Yes.
All right. Well,
Aaron
Drew,
did very well. I know you were worried, but Aaron did very well.
Well, that's actually, we've changed the name to the Illegal Curve diving show, and we were going to actually bring Aaron on.
And our next guest is Tim Stutzla.
Ouch.
That was clever. Wow, Connor coming with the biting commentary. Wow.
That was well done, Connor. That was very quick. That was the type of wit we appreciate here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We're midway through the show, Drew. We of course, sir. Once you left, Sarah continued the conversation, and I asked her about Brad Lambert, and I just asked Connor about Brad Lambert and the long runway he's had with the Jets and what it's done for his confidence. You're welcome to add some thoughts, or we can move on to the next topic. But just in terms of what it's done for him, and also whether you think he may deserve, if he has a really good summer, and obviously training camp will be the ultimate decider, and also what Kevin Cheveldayoff does. Do you think he gets a look at up the middle with the Jets?
I'd be surprised if he goes up the middle with the Jets. I just, this idea of moving somebody from the wing to center after they've already sort of established themselves in their professional career, I just don't love it. I don't think there's a great track record of success to that effect. I understand, if you're a center, I think you should be playing center for most of your professional career. The transition to me is sort of like learning how to walk again. It's not easy, especially as you get older and you get more established in your career. So I'd be surprised if he is considered sort of the option for the Jets' second line center was. We remember it was only 2 training camps ago that Cole Perfetti was going to start at second line center, and I think that lasted for all of about an exhibition game and a half before the Jets quickly pulled the plug on that and kept him on the wing, where it's clear that he's going to continue to develop as a player on the wing. The second line center question is still absolutely the biggest unknown and the biggest to do for the Winnipeg Jets this offseason, whenever this offseason starts, be it after Thursday's game or be it after a playoff run. That needs to be resolved. It can just no longer continue to be something that they try and patchwork and to minimal success. Brad Lambert, to the discussion about Brad Lambert, though, I think he's firmly established himself as a NHL player. I do not see any avenue for him going back to being an AHL player, barring some sort of conditioning stint, rebound from injury. The Jets just don't have enough young talent that would, to let him, wither on the vine any longer. It just seems like he's taken this opportunity. We've seen the glimpses. We've seen the solid two-way play at both ends of the ice. That is really, I think, to me, almost more established himself in this league than anything that has to do strictly with being an offensive player. To me, Brad Lambert is an NHL player and will be on the Jets next year, obviously for the rest of this season, and however long it lasts. And I applaud him for taking this opportunity and making the most of it. A lot of players aren't able to do that, and he's managed to elevate his game at the NHL level from where he was playing at the AHL level, and to that I think he does deserve some kudos.
Yeah, and worth noting. I mean, just to be for the sake of clarity, Brad Lambert has played center with the Manitoba Moose this season. He wasn't playing on the wing. I'm just saying they moved him to the wing after he had played center for a bit with them, and then, but yeah, he was
right. But if the Jets thought of him as a center, they would be playing him up the middle right now at the NHL level. That would be my comment to that. I mean, I know that it's.
I'm just saying more for clarity that he did play some up the middle this year with the Moose. It was more not that you're right, not wrong, Drew. I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm just saying that it's just a function of the fact that he did play a little bit. But you're right. They most likely don't see him as that, and that's a lot of responsibility to put on shoulders. And again, from my perspective, which is why I made the comment, I think it becomes a strength issue. Right? Is Brad Lambert strong enough to play center at the NHL level? Which is why I think the summer is going to be so significant for him of training to really say, like, look, I've spent 21 games in the NHL now. I know these guys are bigger, faster, stronger. The ultimate, I don't think there's I mean, dump pucks in is a good one, but I think the ultimate hockey prospect cliche when you talk to them over at the end of the season is, well, I got to get bigger, faster, stronger. And I mean, he doesn't have to get faster. He's not going to get much bigger, but he does have to get stronger. I think that's probably going to be a big thing for.
And the strength comes, to your point though, Dave. The strength comes from two factors. It comes from working out and building up your muscles, and making yourself physically stronger from being in the gym. And then there's also just the strength that comes with aging, with your body filling out more, with just naturally the age. As you tend to get older and as you tend to move throughout your 20s, you're just going to sort of grow into your body just that little much more and become that much stronger. I look at Alex Iafallo's play on Thursday against the Blues where he sets up the opening goal for the Jets. He gets to that position based on his strength, based on the fact that he's, I think just a more fit, not physically fit, but just he's got, just as a human being, he is a stronger person. I think a combination of the work he does in the gym and a combination of the work that he does just becoming naturally stronger to get that inside position. I'm forgetting who it was on the Blues that he beat to get to that spot off the top of my head. And Connor, maybe you can remind me, but just the strength to lift the stick. Was it Neighbors? I think it was Jake Neighbors.
It was Neighbors.
Okay.
So the Iafallo play was Neighbors. Yeah.
Yeah, just to get there, just to be stronger than Jake Neighbors, because Alex Iafallo has more man strength, and I know it sounds like a ridiculous topic or a ridiculous concept, man strength, but just he has more man strength by virtue of being, in his 30s than Neighbors does at this stage of his career. He lifts Neighbors' stick, he gets that inside position, and then he's really hard to move. I caution about Lambert. You remember when Josh Morrissey broke in and with the Ice Caps, right? And he had that great playoff run with the Ice Caps, and then he went to the gym all that offseason, and he got, stronger in the gym. But it actually was a detriment to his success on ice because his body wasn't ready for that kind of muscular physique. There's a fine balance there that and of course they have conditioning coaches and everybody else who are far more educated on that topic than I am. But I do think it is a fine balance, and you strictly can't become a gym rat because it might, to some extent, hurt you in other ways on the ice. And now I'll stop talking for a second.
Well, yeah, I think that's a good point. And I'm glad you brought up that if the organization viewed Brad Lambert as a center, he'd be playing center right now. Like, he's playing on the wing on a line with Vlad Namestnikov. Like, if he can't come up and play center over Vlad Namestnikov right now, then the organization views him long-term as a winger. And I saw Partisan Paul, we had the comment up, just joining, and we're talking about 2C, not sure if I'm watching a video from 2020 or 2026. It's true. And I think the conversation around the 2C this offseason is going to be Braden Yeager. I think that's the conversation, more so than a guy like Brad Lambert. And Yeager was drafted 1 year after Brad Lambert. Like, Brad Lambert is up this year with the Winnipeg Jets, getting better by the game, getting more confident. We're seeing that. We're seeing him come into his own a little bit. Can Braden Yeager take another step next year and be a more impactful player than Vlad Namestnikov? I venture to say so. It's I think that the offseason conversation around center, you have Scheifele, you have Lowry, and you have Barron. Obviously, where you'd want someone to slot in is between Scheifele and Lowry. Who's most likely to do that in the organization? I'd rather bet on Yeager than Lambert, personally. I don't know about you, Dave. You watch more Yeager than I do.
Yeah, I think there might be some Jaeger bombs coming to the CLC next year, is what Connor's saying. But I mean, I think what it comes down to, like I kind of started off this segment, was that I think the concern for the organization. Oh, go ahead, Drew.
Sorry, I was just going to say, to Connor's point, though, can the Jets enter next year hoping that they have the solution in-house to the second-line center? That, to me, is going to lead them to the same situation they're currently in, where if it doesn't materialize, and it's putting a lot of pressure on, on Jaeger or on whomever they sort of have penciled in on their board, unless there is an obvious, clear-cut solution acquired this offseason. Doesn't that just mean we're almost in the exact same position that we're in this year? And I just don't know that can be sold, and that can be, hope is not a plan.
Yeah.
I hope to grow hair. It's not going to happen.
But
maybe I'll get a toupee. That could be a plan.
Drew, it happens on your face, though.
On my face, yes, no problem there. I have a lot. That's not an issue for me. But hoping that I'm going to grow hair is not a plan. Going out and buying a toupee would be a bad plan, but it would be a plan nonetheless. That's what I'm saying from the Winnipeg Jets perspective.
Let me say this,
Connor. Couldn't we just send Drew to Turkey where he get hair plants?
There you go. Yeah, there you go. We could.
They don't have enough in the country to handle with the lack of a forest on the top of my head right now.
I will say this I agree with you that like just throwing Jaeger in there and hoping is definitely not a plan. But I'd argue a worser case scenario. Don't even know if that's a phrase. Mark that one down. Would be if the Winnipeg Jets go and acquire a stopgap 2C, and we don't see Braden Jaeger with the Jets until he's 24 years old. And it's just this like I don't even know who to use as the example here. Like it's a 2C that doesn't put the Winnipeg Jets over the top, but also doesn't like it's just a stopgap. It's just a player that's blocking Braden Jaeger from being here and being a center for the next couple of years. We know Adam Lowry's under contract. We know Scheifele's under contract. Barron is a pending UFA going into next season. So there's some uncertainty there. But if I'd rather them run with Braden Jaeger at center next year than go out and sign a pending UFA on a 2-year deal because Braden Jaeger's presumably not ready yet. And then you're just waiting until Jaeger is 23 or 24 years old. I don't know. This is the big offseason topic, but
the problem is, Connor, I mean, I don't disagree with what you're saying that you don't want to block your prospects. Right. But there isn't, I don't think that there's a free agent who can come in and play that role for the Jets. So I think the only way that they solve their 2C dilemma this offseason is by a trade. Yeah, the free agent market just doesn't seem like there's anything there, where you're going to solve your problem. Now, maybe, wherever you end up drafting in that first round, let's say they don't end up making the playoffs, which is still more likely than not, maybe a top 10 pick, you find your second line center that way, and that all of a sudden becomes your solution for next year. Now, that would be unexpected to have somebody 18 step in right into your lineup, but that's sort of always been the push-pull of this late season run, is that, is your second line center going to be available there at the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th overall pick in this coming draft, and how quickly does that player step into your lineup? That is.
I'd also say if I agree with you that like via trade is the way for the Jets to get that second line center, but then it becomes another conversation of, okay, what assets do the Winnipeg Jets have to go get a second line center? And then it becomes a conversation, okay, if the Jets are picking 12th in this upcoming draft, is that a pick you move for a long-term second line center solution? Are you trading a Braden Jaeger type? You got to give up quality to get quality. Or are you just moving like a second round pick, like the Nino Niederreiter trade from a few years ago? I know Nino is not a center, but something along those lines where it's just for a veteran under contract, he's the center kind of thing. That becomes the conversation, because the Jets, they did a good job recouping assets in the Stanley Shen deal for 2 pending UFAs. But before that, and even now, you could argue just the cupboards are not stocked in terms of picks, prospects. We know the prospects. So I don't know.
Well, and I think what it comes down to is, again, one of the things we've talked about, regardless of what happens this season, you have to organizationally look at yourselves in the mirror and say, what do we have here? And unfortunately for them, because of the way they kind of pursued this run They didn't get a chance to kind of give any other prospects a kind of a longer look at the NHL level through 3, 4, 5, maybe 10 games even. If we get, like I said, even though we thought they would be out of it, I was saying at the 15 game mark, before the 15 game mark, but I was saying, with 15 games to go or 10 games to go, you're going to give these guys a long look, a Zhilkin type, a Jagger type. They, of course, didn't do that. And now it's most likely going to be 1 or 2 games at most, if at all, because of the current situation. But I think, again, getting back to that idea of like timelines not quite lining up. And that's the problem for the Jets. I don't think personally that Jagger is quite there yet, Connor. I think that he's probably a 27, 28 second line center option. But the problem for the Jets is you can't afford, to Drew's point, you can't sit there with hopes and wishes and say this summer, well, eventually we're going to have it, so maybe we could kind of make do. Well, look, you didn't have it this year. You didn't make the proper adjustments. You, for some bizarre reason, said Jonathan Toews, who had been out for over 2 seasons, was going to be your 2-line center. And again, it just never materialized. And Jonathan Toews and I should say Gus Nyquist, who's of course been an abject disaster, other than if you're talking about the ping pong table, and that's where he's been phenomenal. But at 2 line, it's on the second line, it's been awful. And that's again, that's.
Let me ask you this question, guys. Sorry, let me ask you this question. You talk about Jonathan Toews, and we talked about this, I think, on the post-game show earlier this week, Dave, about Toews vis-a-vis his future with the Jets next year. And the general consensus that we agreed upon was that if he decides that he wants to play again, there's probably going to be the Jets are going to find a spot for him. So all of a sudden, if Jonathan, now he's not going to be your second line center. I think I hope the organization has realized that that's not a viable option.
Look, if Jonathan Toews is coming back, Drew, if Jonathan Toews comes back, he's your 4th line center getting 4th line minutes, and he'll get some power play time, and he'll get important face-offs in the 3rd period. That's the way Jonathan Toews comes back to the NHL next year.
Yeah, I would agree with you. But then doesn't that mean you almost have 5 set? You have Scheifele, question mark at 2C, Lowry, Barron, and Toews? Or are you kicking Barron to the wing for next year? Keep in mind, Barron, by the way, is a year away from UFA status as well.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know about Connor, but to me, I'd be fine with, Barron, I know we haven't seen a long extended look with Barron at 2C, but again, we're not talking about a guy who's absolutely tearing it up. He's playing a lot of games. What does he have in terms of his production this year? He's got 11 goals, 12 assists. Yeah. So, it's okay.
Is that so far off from Vlad Nemesnikov numbers when he was sort of the Jets' second line center for an entire season? If you put Barron at 2C for 82 games with Velarde and Perfetti, are you telling me he can't match what Nemesnikov was doing at second line center? I don't think that's necessarily a solution. I don't think that should be the, okay, well, I'm going to wipe my hands, we're done here on that effect. But over the course of an 82-game season with Barron playing significant second-line center minutes next to Perfetti and Velarde, if that's the trio, he's going to put up numbers that are basically the Vlad Nemesnikov numbers.
No, he'll be better than Vlad Nemesnikov. I think we would all agree that he would produce more than Nemesnikov. I think the bigger concern is you didn't do it this year. And if any year there was a year to do it, to be like, let's try some things out, this was kind of your year to do it, because to the point that you made 10 minutes ago or 5 minutes ago throughout the course of this conversation, you can't go with a wish and a prayer that Morgan Barron is going to be a 2C solution. And you can't say, well, do we really think we have a Stanley Cup roster with Scheifele, Barron, Lowry, Toews? Does it sound that way? I don't know. Not to me.
It doesn't, but going back to, but looking at what the organization has historically done in terms of aggressively trying to fill a hole in the offseason, they've never really looked at it in the second line center. They've never accomplished much in the second line center in terms of as an off-season move. So again, past actions is a good indicator of what you might do in the future. I just don't know that it's necessarily off the table that the organization is going to look at Morgan Barron and say, rather than having to give up an asset, rather than having to go out and trading away from our not extremely deep roster of prospects, maybe we can get Morgan Barron and he can be prime Vlad Nemesnikov and that's the second line center solution. I don't know that that's the right thing to do. In fact, it's probably not the right thing to do, but I can certainly envision them talking themselves into that.
Yeah, I could see them talking themselves into that for sure. I just, and you've made this point too, I don't see the ideal version of next year's Winnipeg Jets team having Morgan Barron as the second line center. I think ideally he's either your fourth line center or he's on your third line wing with a guy like Adam Lowry playing big defensive shutdown minutes and chipping in offensively. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see, because I think we can all agree if it's between like Barron, like they'll kick Nemeskov to the wing, I would assume, and he might even be a guy that's in and out of the lineup. Niederreiter, these are pending UFAs. Barron's a pending UFA. There's just a lot. There's a lot of uncertainty. Like Vlad, I don't know if you can have Vlad Nemeskov and Jonathan Toews on the team next year, just numbers wise.
That's what I was going to ask next. Is could you envision a buyout for a guy like Nemeskov?
No, I think they buy out Nino before they buy out Vlad, to be honest with you.
Really? I
Fair
think
enough.
Nino
I mean,
has
you can
value.
go
I think Nino has value that you don't need to buy him out, honestly. As a pending UFA?
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe.
I know it's
I'm
been a
not
tough year, but...
Do you think there's any lingering resentment in the organization for how he handled his knee situation?
I don't know. Because we asked Scott O'Neill about it, and he talked about how, there's agents and players involved, and they ultimately the decision is theirs. And it's clearly something he could play through, but also clearly something that hampered his ability to play at a high level, or the typical Nino Niederreiter level. I did find that interesting. I did. I don't know what you thought about that, Dave. That basically Nino outright admitted that he had this knee problem all the way in training camp and preseason, didn't do anything about it because he had the 1,000 game milestone and the Olympics on the horizon. And then when the Olympics ended, he was like, all right, now's the time. We're 11 points out. Team's not making it. Now I'll get my knee cleaned up. Like, I don't know. What did you think of that?
So I was of the same opinion, and I thought to myself, like, dear Lord, like, you did not help the team out. And then to say basically like, oh, well, I had my 1,000th game on my mind and the Olympics. Well, then it looks, but when we talked to O'Neill and the way he kind of said, like, listen, like some days it was fine, some days it wasn't. So it wasn't a problem that it was like he was in constant pain and couldn't deal with it, but was kind of fighting through it in order to get those milestones or the Olympics. So, or the milestone and then the Olympics. So, so that made it a little bit better in my mind, because I think like with the way Nino presented, it was like, well, yeah, that's exactly what I wanted. So I agree with you. When we were talking to him after practice, I think it was one day, Connor, I kind of heard that. And I was like, that's an interesting admission.
It was also interesting too, because he got healthy scratched at one point this year, right? Against Ottawa, I believe it was. Toronto. Yeah. So like that, to me, I was thinking back to that and thinking, oh, okay, so the Jets knew about, like, this is obviously something that they were dealing with. That maybe wasn't an entirely healthy scratch. It was a 50% hurt, 50% healthy scratch back at that time. And he was also struggling for sure.
Yeah. So look, I think it's a tale as old as time. I think it's going to be one that's fascinating to watch. I think the fact that, like, again, we're still talking, I agree with the original one from Partisan Paul, which was, I can't believe we're still talking 2C on the Winnipeg Jets. And it's funny because Dom asked me, said, did you forget about Pierre-Luc Dubois? I'm like, no, I didn't forget about Pierre-Luc Dubois. I thought he would have been, to be honest with you, I think he'd be a very good center behind Mark Scheifele. I think if you had Scheifele, Dubois, Lowry, and Barron or Toews, you're fine. But the problem is Dubois didn't want to stick around, so it didn't last. So, the quest continues, and I have all the confidence that Braden Yager is going to be a very good young player in the NHL when he gets his chance. I just don't know that he's ready for it next year. And to Drew's point, your organization cannot have we thought we'd be able to fill it internally and we failed, because you can't fail again with this roster next year, because then you're going to have big problems. You're going to have guys who've committed here for a long time who committed here because they think that there's a chance to win, and they're going to question that if the second line center remains an issue. Okay, let's head to commercial break, because we've been doing it. Whoa, Drew, there's some stuff going on at the Pan Am Pool right now.
So just for context, again, if anyone's just joining us, I'm at the Pan Am Pool. My daughter's in a swim meet. If you haven't been to the Pan Am Pool recently, it has to be the busiest place in the city of Winnipeg in terms of a recreational facility. There's a massive swim meet going on today. there's a synchronized swimming competition going on. That's why you might hear some music in the background.
Which Drew, by the way, will be participating in the synchronized swimming.
Right.
He's actually
exactly.
He's going to flutter up from the bottom of the pool.
I think it's called artistic swimming now, not synchronized swimming anymore, to be perfectly honest. This facility, which I'm here about 5 days a week between both my kids and their swimming and diving and things of that nature, we are, not to get all maudlin briefly, but this is such an incredible facility. Now it's showing its age a little bit because it's, almost 60 years old now. Mm-hmm. But it is such an incredibly well-used facility that I can't get over how busy it is just on a regular basis and how much is going on here all the time. So that's why I'm sort of hidden in the corner here. I'm going to probably dump out again in a few more minutes as my daughter's second race is about to start. But that's why I just wanted to make mention that with all the noise and all the background noise, I had a nice family come up to me and say, hey, are you going back on air? Because they were watching me broadcast on their phone. They were watching me here because their son is also in the swimming races today. So there's a lot going on. And before we go to break, Dave, I got to give a shout out to my son and his soccer team. He's playing in a soccer game, the third place game happening elsewhere in Winnipeg, and they won. I just got the alert from Laura that they won. So I have to give Sam a shout out and all of his soccer team as well.
Okay, so congratulations to Sam. But Drew, you didn't tell us what happened with Aaron. Did Aaron win the diving competition?
It's a swimming competition, Dave. It's not a diving competition. It's a swimming competition.
No offense, Drew. That's the same as you. That's you telling me like synchronized swimming is now artisanal dancing or eating or whatever. It's all the same to me. It's all swimming, Drew. It's a pool.
Yes, she set a new personal best. She shaved about 3.5 seconds off of her previous time in the 50-meter backstroke. So she did a great job setting a new personal best. It's amazing, especially at kids at their age. Just the amount of time that they spend practicing and how quickly the results pay off in terms of improvement. You just see the upward trajectory. It's a shame that it's not always the same for hockey players. At the age of 18, 20, 22, and 24, you don't necessarily see that huge upward trajectory. But when you're 8 and 10 and you spend a lot of time in the pool, you quickly do see results. So Aaron did see some great results so far, and 2 more races still to come this morning.
Right.
So hopefully we'll see similar results.
Well, the chat is having fun with the Drew in the pool thoughts. We are going to head to commercial break. Drew may or may not be with us when we welcome Anthony Sanfalippo of Crossing Broad to talk Flyers on the other side of the break. But here are some words from our sponsors.
I want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling sites instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
do our profits benefit your community?
No. Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime. Visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Centre.
Boys, I've made an important life decision, and I need your support.
Oh, boy.
I've decided to get a grill.
You mean a barbecue grill for cooking? Like, that's not an important life decision, Ezzy.
No. A grill for my teeth.
A grill for your teeth? Do I even want to know why you're doing this?
It's simple, really. Every time I go to Holt Dental, I get treated so very well by Dr. John and his team that I need to keep finding additional reasons to go back. I rely on Holt Dental for all of my dental needs, and they do it all, from regular cleanings to cosmetic dentistry. Plus, they have free parking at their front door. And you know how much I love my convenient parking.
For all your dental needs, Illegal Curve recommends Holt Dental, conveniently located on Taylor Avenue near Grant Park Mall. For more information, visit them online at holtdental.ca.
For over 40 years, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has been Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy. Renowned in the comedy world as a must-play venue, Rumors has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers, wedding socials, and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase show tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
Hey Winnipeg, Joe Carter here. I look forward to joining you in Winnipeg on June 4th for the Rady JCC Ken Cronson Sports Dinner. See you in June. Don't be late.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
Welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. I'm Dave Minuk. He's Drew Mandel at a pool. He's Connor Rabchak, not Harabchak, Drew. And one of our favorite guests of all time. We had a great time with him at the 2014 draft in Philadelphia. We have a great time when he come. Well, back in the day when he used to come to Winnipeg, we'd take him out. Actually, I believe Anthony drove us around. Anthony Sanfalippo, on Pattison, and Snow the goalie. Anthony, how's it going? Well, we can see Anthony, but we can't hear Anthony. Anthony, there. Oh, hold on.
Can't hear
Anthony
us.
is there. Can you hear us, Anthony? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Can't hear us? Can't hear us. All right.
Maybe log out and log back in, Anthony.
Okay, well, we
can't hear you guys.
Okay, well, we can hear Anthony, but Anthony can't hear us. Let's see if it's something to do with the settings, but
Anthony, log out and log back in.
Drew, text them. Don't.
I'll text them.
We can't hear you. We're gonna text you.
Maybe if we all yell louder, he'll be able to hear us.
Anthony's saying he can't hear us. All right. Well, we're gonna work out Anthony's technical issues. Drew is going to text Anthony right now to get him to log in and log out, and then we'll hopefully get Anthony back to bring us the Flyers perspective on all things. And now Drew, for some reason, is okay. Drew, you're there. Connor's here.
Anthony's gonna log out and log back in, and hopefully that'll solve the technical difficulties that we're having.
Okay. Good. No, good. We'll hopefully get Anthony back here to give us some Flyers update. The Flyers team, as Drew mentioned, has a lot of connections to the city of Winnipeg, going back many years. Of course, the Bobby Clark days, the Reggie Leach days. We, of course, back in Hockey Manitoba's 100th anniversary. I think Richard, you and I, or Richard Ezzy and I, did that show, and Reggie, we got a chance to interview Reggie Leach at the. I
think it was you. I think it was you, Richard, and Ezzy. I was somewhere, and that was when we had. I believe it was Jay Onright was on with us as well, if I'm not mistaken, back then.
That is when Jay Onright found a hair and claimed it was a pubic hair. So that was quite a memorable show, and he talked about it for about 10 minutes, guys. It was quite the scene. All right, we've got Anthony back. We're hopefully Anthony can hear us, and he can. Oh, he's giving the nod. So Anthony, welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. One of our favorite guests. Worked up the Gremlins. How you doing, Anthony?
I'm doing fantastic. Sitting down here at the baseball stadium, waiting for a Phillies game to start. But then I will be tuned in very intently with you, just like you guys tonight, for Flyers Jets. Beginning, I guess it's 6 o'clock your time, right?
It is.
That you guys always start at 6 o'clock in Winnipeg on Saturdays? Is that what it is?
Saturdays, yeah. Usually Saturday games are 6 o'clock. And you know, Anthony, it's been since 2014. We were last at a Phillies game. Back at that draft, the Chase Utley 14th inning homer that only some of us stayed for. Others, Drew was one of them. Drew almost got the home run ball, missed it by literally like that much. But that was a good time.
And then what happened, Dave? Tell them what happened after I missed it.
Well, you the guy who got the ball and Drew took a picture together because Drew ended up like getting a
ball ricochet. The ball ricocheted off the seat behind me and smacked me in the face. That's what happened.
Tough balance.
Anthony, I'm not joking. Like, Utley hit it so high, and I was under it, and I used to play in the field, and I was like, man, no glove. This smokes me in the face. I'm dead. I'm getting out of the way. And it hit those outfield stanchions in Philly so loud it sounded like a bomb went off. And then Mindell, like I see him, like he looked like a squirrel running to get the ball and diving for it, but he did not get it. And some young kid got it, who we later, after we left the arena, saw, and then Drew and him took a picture. But let's talk about the good times in Philly, the Flyers, because they are unexpectedly in a playoff spot, third in the Metro. So how are the Flyers kind of, because people were writing them off earlier, how are the Flyers kind of turning things around?
Well, they've played really good defensive hockey since the Olympic break. Rick Tocchet and the coaching staff made a bunch of changes to the systems that they were doing, really kind of taking away the middle of the ice. And at 5-on-5, they've been one of the better teams in the NHL since the Olympic break. So you've got that combined with really great goaltending, primarily from Dan Vladar. Although, to be fair, Sam Ersson did have a stretch of about 5 games where he was really, really good as well. So you take those two things and you combine it with the fact that every team that the Flyers are competing for a playoff spot with have gone in the tank. Like if you look around, it was the perfect storm. I wrote a story. They lost the first game out of the Olympic break, which the end of February, and they lost it to the Washington Capitals, and they had fallen 8 points back with 25 to go. And I wrote a story saying, all right, chalk it up. This is the 6th straight season they're going to miss the playoffs. Because what were the odds at that point? Maybe like 4%, right? That they would make the playoffs. Well, here we are with 3 games to go in the season, and they're in a playoff spot. So it's pretty incredible how it's kind of all come together for them. I don't want to take anything away from the way that they've played, because they've certainly played well and they deserve it. But they got a lot of help. The Islanders, the Blue Jackets, the Red Wings, they all kind of fell apart. Washington, even a little bit, fell apart to allow them to be in the spot where if they win out, they're guaranteed to be in the postseason.
Anthony, you mentioned the goaltending. Dan Vladar and Samuel Ersson are not anybody's first choices when it comes to the premier goaltending duo in the NHL. Is their success, I guess, how surprised are you about their success, given that both are, Vladar's bounced around, Ersson's still a bit of a younger goaltender, that the success of the goaltending duo is sort of coming out of left field unexpectedly. How surprised are you about their success between the nets?
We're everyone in town, including the people who run the Philadelphia Flyers, we're surprised by how well Dan Vladar has played this year. And look, they knew he was a good veteran backup type, somebody who could maybe push Ersson for some playing time, but they didn't really think much more than that. They kind of thought he was going to be like a middle of the pack kind of guy. And then he's going out there and he's second to Andrei Vasilevsky this year in games where he's allowed 2 goals or fewer. He's got he's had 32 games of 2 goals or fewer this year, which is pretty fascinating. And so, like, when you look at that, you say, well, that's got to be the big rim. He's their team MVP for the entirety of the year. Now, he's played more games than maybe he has ever played before. And over the last few weeks, there's been a couple games here and there where you're like, he let one in that he probably wouldn't have let in earlier in the year. So you wonder if fatigue is starting to creep in. He'll never say that it is, but you wonder that a little bit. Ersson, on the other hand, he went from having the worst starts to a season, and then since the Olympic break, he's been pretty good. So like that's been the other thing. Like when they've needed to give Vladar a break, Ersson's come in and done a really nice job. Other than maybe his last start was just kind of mediocre, but beyond that, he has been really good since the break. So it's the combination of those two guys that maybe is the most unexpected combination this year of goaltender success in the NHL.
Anthony, I want to ask about Porter Martone. You've talked about the Flyers recently.
Yeah.
He's come up and played the last 6 games. He's got 6 points. We saw him play for Canada at the World Juniors this past year and score basically at a goal a game in the World Juniors. How big of an addition has that been as his season wrapped up at Michigan State and he's come over and been producing at a point per game pace in the NHL?
Yeah, it's probably the third thing that I didn't mention before of what's going really well for the Flyers is they had a little bit of luck because had Michigan State not lost to Wisconsin in the quarterfinals of the NCAA tournament, they very well could be playing in the national championship game tonight, and we wouldn't have had any of this Porter Martone on the Flyers stuff happen so far, right? So they're a little bit lucky there. And Martone has made a difference. He's been a difference maker. Him and the return of Tyson Forster, unexpectedly so. They didn't think he'd be back before the end of the regular season. Him coming back as well has been a big addition for the Flyers. And the two of them lead the team in total shots since they've arrived. And that's been the thing. Like, the Flyers have not been a good offensive team, mostly because they're not generating chances to the net. You add these two guys who they just shoot at will, and they're pretty accurate. And what I mean by accurate doesn't necessarily mean they're going to score a ton of goals, although they may eventually. But they're putting the shots on net, and that's what matters. You can't miss the net. You can't, have shots constantly get blocked. You got to find a way to get the pucks through. These two guys do that. Porter Martone set an NHL record for most shots on goal ever by a guy in his first 2 games in his NHL career. He had 14 in the first 2 games combined. I mean, that's the kind of player that he is. He's a difference maker, big-time difference maker, and the addition of him and Forster really elevates this offense to a level that it had not been at previously, really in the last 4 or 5 years.
This is, of course, the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Jets Flyers, they're getting underway around 6 p.m. Anthony Sanfalippo of On Pattison and Snow the Goalie podcast, one of our all-time favorites. He's joining us to bring that Flyers insight. Speaking of someone who's not joining us but leaving us, Anthony, that's Drew Mandel, because Drew is currently at his daughter's diving competition. So he is at the pool, Anthony. Whatever. It's all the same difference to me, Drew. No offense. I've gotten it wrong 7 times already. I'm not going to get it right now, but fine. Aaron's swim meet is currently underway.
Thank you. I got to go watch her race. Anthony, I love you, buddy. I'll see you in May, buddy.
See you in May, Drew.
All right. Yeah. So there goes Drew Mandel. We keep the conversation going with Anthony Sanfalippo. Anthony, the guy I want to ask you about it. Yeah, I know. Thank God. It's so much better.
When he left, I don't know if you can hear me, guys. When he left, it knocked the audio out again.
No, really?
I cannot hear. Dave, I can't hear you. I can't hear Connor. As soon as I blame Mandel, as soon as he leaves, it caused an audio issue. If you want, I will log out and log back in again. Is that cool? Cool. Yeah. All right.
There we go.
All right. Well, there he goes. Anthony Sanfalippo's leaving.
Is it something I said, Dave? Like, what's going on here?
I think it's something Drew said. Let's be realistic. Drew's intrusive thoughts are getting in the way of this being a smooth broadcast. I knew he threw me off, Connor, right from the beginning. Like, he's like, I can join you guys. And I was kind of like, you could, but we don't really need you. But sure, whatever. You want to join us? And fine, he joined us. I'm like, okay, well, I'm in the host chair. I'm literally sitting in a host chair. And of course, let's hope Anthony is good. All right, Anthony, we're back to being good. We're just making it's fine. We're just using this as an opportunity to make fun of Drew. So it's all good that you gave us a little sidebar there. But Anthony, who I wanted to ask you about was Matvei Michkov, because he's in his second full season with the Flyers. What's kind of your assessment of him so far? And your interesting side when I asked kind of leads us off.
Well, you guys are going to be really surprised about what I have to say about Matvei Michkov. It's going to be the same thing that a lot of people have said. He has been very, very underwhelming. And the reality of it is that the fans in this town don't see it or they don't want to believe it. But he has been their Achilles heel in a lot of ways. He's played a little bit better since the Olympic break. I mean, he's got some points. He's picking up some secondary assists, but he turns the puck over a lot. He takes a lot of bad penalties, and that's the thing. The Flyers cannot afford to be on special teams. They have the second worst plus minus on special teams. And what I mean by that is goals for versus goals against. They're minus 21 on special teams this year, which is amazing that they're in a playoff spot with that disparity, right? And a lot of it is because they take penalties that they shouldn't take. And Michkov is the guy that's taken a lot of them. And I don't want it to sound critical to the point where you say, this guy's going to be a bust, because I'm not there. I do think that this guy is going to be a really good player in the league. I just think that he got himself so far behind and learned a very, very difficult lesson about being prepared for a season in the NHL. Mm-hmm. You just cannot catch up. You just cannot. Once you are behind, you got to wait till the next year. You just do before you get there, and it kind of sucks. And, a lot of people in town don't want to believe that, but it's the truth. And they're just, they're playing him because he's got some skill, but he's being protected. He's on a third line playing with Noah Cates, who's a very good defensive center. So, Cates can kind of make up for some of the mistakes. When he's on, he's an electric player. He's a very good player. But the problem is Mishkov is not on more often than he is. And it's been the one disappointment. Look, if he had even a semblance of the season that he had a year ago, the Flyers aren't battling for a playoff spot right now. They're already in. They would already be locked in. They'd be ahead of the Penguins, probably just behind Carolina in the Metro. But the fact is that Mishkov's been a little bit of a disappointment this season.
Yeah, it's been a storyline that has caught national headlines for sure. Another player I wanted to ask about was an offseason move last year that's really worked out for the Flyers in Trevor Zegras. He set career highs in goals and points as their top line center. They got him for Ryan Poehling in a second-round pick. What has that trade done for the Flyers this year, both for now and the future, as he's only 25 years old and playing at a top line center level?
Yeah, so so I have some reservations still about him as a top line center.
Sure.
But he's been everything that they needed him to be. He's back to being the guy that kind of got everybody excited the first 2 years in Anaheim, right? I mean, he's putting up that kind of production. He was earlier this season on a point per game pace, kind of dropped off a little bit, but still ramped it back up again here. He's probably going to finish close to 70 points, if not quite get there. He's been really good. Now, most of the season he's played on the wing. They moved him back to center right after the trade deadline. And it was more, the Flyers at that point, they weren't looking at it as like, we're going to get back into this thing. It was like, hey, we're kind of looking ahead. They just traded Bobby Brink for David Jiricek. So like you're thinking about next season. Let's take a look at Zegras at center, see how it works. Well, it's actually worked pretty well. My concern level with it is that you can't get drunk on your own success. And what I mean by that is you can't now look at Trevor Zegras, who's had a very good season, although an imperfect one, and say, okay, he could be a number one center next year and beyond, because I'm not sure he's that. But if you go out and if you find a way to get another guy that can be above him in the lineup and he's your second line center, and he's doing this kind of production, then I think then you're totally fine with it, right? Like the reality of it is the Flyers have a very young group of forwards that are going to grow together, and Zegras certainly should be one of them. I anticipate a contract coming for him sometime soon. I thought that they were going to get it done by the end of March. It's kind of got pushed a little bit, but it would not surprise me if we hear something soon on an extension for Zegras. He wants to be here. He loves it here. He loves the guys in that locker room, and he's been a really, really good fit for the organization.
Anthony, I'm curious about Jamie Drysdale. How's that fit been? Obviously, they do that with the Cutter Gauthier, who decided he didn't want to be a Flyer. And let me tell you, it's a good thing he went to the West, because I couldn't imagine having to go to Philly more than once if you sort of asked for yourself out of the Philadelphia area. But how's it gone for Jamie Drysdale now with the Flyers?
Yeah, and I'll answer that question, but I'll tell you that there is no more anticipated game now than the Ducks coming in every year. Like it is an experience. The last 2 years have been unbelievable in that building when Gauthier is in town. Jamie Drysdale this year has been a little bit of a revelation. He was a guy who kind of, the first season and a half that they had him, it was like, okay, like this is going to be a disaster. Like he can't play defense. He's not as good offensively as everybody thought he was supposed to be when he was drafted so high. This return for Gauthier is not going to be good. And so there was a lot of criticism of him. Mm-hmm. He came into this year and he's been probably their most improved player. And they give out an award at the end of the year for most improved, and it's got to be him. He's been really, really solid. He's never going to be a top line or top pair defenseman. But he is a solid second unit defenseman. Played really strong on the defensive end. His game has gotten so much better in his own end. He leads breakouts really well, makes a good first pass. And his offensive game is starting to come a little bit. We're starting to see a little bit more of him jumping into the play, finding opportunities to get the puck to the net. The one thing I still think that he could be better at that he's not is firing shots from the point on the power play. Flyers are the worst power play in the NHL for 5 years running now. And they thought Drysdale would be a guy who could come in and quarterback it. He hasn't done that. That's the one thing that you sit there and go, yeah, man, I wish there was something better about him. That would be it. But on the whole, when you look at his 25-26 season, it has been a huge improvement over what he was the previous 2 years.
That's good to hear. I know Jamie Drysdale, a player that has the tools, and as you mentioned, good to see him lean into the offensive game a little bit more. How much of the conversation ahead of tonight's game, Anthony, is, I know the Flyers are probably in what we're talking about here with the Jets, where it's you just win every single game the rest of the way would be the most ideal way to make the playoffs. But I'm looking at their schedule. This is their third last game. Then they get the Hurricanes and the Habs, two teams that are, vying for the division leads in the Eastern Conference. How big of an emphasis is it on tonight's game to take care of a weaker opponent, if you will, with the Hurricanes and the Habs on deck?
Yeah, and the one thing you got to look at, and everybody wants to look ahead, right? And the one thing that I've learned in hockey is you've got to, at this point, you've got to take it one game at a time. I know it's cliche, but take it one game at a time and then reassess. And what I mean by that is like, you look at this game tonight. Yeah, you want to go win it, but they wanted to win the other night against Detroit too, and they didn't. And so you would have thought, okay, well, gee, if they would have lost that game, then that maybe they fall out of a spot. Well, guess what? They got some help, right? The Columbus Blue Jackets got blown out by Buffalo, so they didn't fall out of the spot. So now you reassess, okay, so maybe that loss wasn't so bad. Yes, going into the game, do you want to win tonight and put yourself in a better position? Of course you do. But you also look ahead and you say, okay, Carolina, well, they win tonight. They've pretty much got the Eastern Conference home playoff thing locked up. They would need a catastrophic ending to not get it. Montreal made that last game. I mean, it could have huge meaning for the Canadians, or they could be locked into a playoff spot and then all start resting players, right? So you can't, you can't look at any of those games ahead and say, oh, well, man, this is going to get tougher, because it might not be. It might actually be a little bit easier. You don't know. And I think if you look at the other teams that they're battling with, the Islanders specifically, even though the Islanders have 3 home games, they have 3 tough games as well. Columbus has 3 tougher games. Washington, even though they're clinging to a spot or clinging to a chance to get to a spot, they have to play Pittsburgh twice, home and home, and they do have to play Columbus. So there's 2 teams that are chasing the Flyers that have to play each other, so somebody has to lose. So there are different permutations and combinations. Like I look at it and say, if they go 2-1, they probably still will get in. But you don't want to put it to a situation where your 2 must-win games are against 100+ point teams. So you look at it and say, yeah, this one probably is the one that means more, because then you only maybe have to split the last 2 to get in.
Anthony, the Jets, going back to their first draft in 2011, the one player that was will be the 2 players that will always be linked: the 7th overall pick, Mark Scheifele; the 8th overall pick, Sean Couturier. And it's been a phenomenal season for Mark Scheifele, 33 years old. He's at 99 points, could get to 100 tonight. Sean Couturier, we know if Mark Scheifele had Sean Couturier's defensive impact, he'd be the most complete player in the NHL, but you can't have everything, unfortunately. But from your perspective, I saw the lines from last game, and I saw Couturier was on the wing. What's going on with Sean Couturier this year?
Yeah, so he's actually been a lot better since they made this change and put him on the 4th line. Couturier, look, he's not the same player ever since the back surgeries, right? He was a former Selke Trophy winner. Then he has the 2 back surgeries, misses most of 2 seasons, and when he's come back, he's just not the same player. And you kind of feel bad in a way, because the desire is there, but the body just doesn't allow it. But at the same time, he still has value. He's their best face-off guy, still a good defensive player. They've dropped him down to this 4th line role, and it's not completely on the wing. It's kind of a hybrid. So him and Luke Glendening are kind of sharing it. If the draw's on the left side, Couturier takes the draw. If the draw's on the right side, Glendening takes the draw. And then they kind of play the shift by feel. You know, depending on whoever's closest will be the F1 going in, and then, you know, kind of take that role, F2 and F3. They kind of just, you know, play it by feel. That said, they've pulled him down about 4 minutes a game. And now he's playing about 15 to 16 minutes on average, and he's playing so much better. He's playing a more physical brand. That fourth line has been one of their best lines. They've even scored some goals for them. And the thing of it is that when you're playing such a condensed schedule, and they're playing their last 8 games in the span of 13 days, for example, you need to use the fourth line. Like, that fourth line can't be an 8-9 minute a night line. It's got to get a regular turn through the lineup. And those guys have been an important part of it. They do kill penalties as well. So I think Couturier's got himself into a better role now. I think when you look forward and say, okay, well, what do you do with the future of this? Because he's still under contract for several more years at a big dollar figure. And, you know, a lot of people thought, well, maybe you buy him out. And I look at it and say, is Sean Couturier a $2 million player? Like, if you were looking and say, if I could keep Sean Couturier for $2 million, would I do that? Right. And I would venture to guess almost everybody would say, yeah, sure. I just not at $7 or $8 million, but at 2, sure. Well, if you buy him out, you got to pay $6-point-something million. I think it's 6.6. And then you would have to replace him with a player who's probably making about $2 million. And so you sit there and say, would you rather go get somebody else for that and pay 6.6 for dead money? Or do you want to sit there and just pay Sean Couturier what you're paying him? And I think you're probably better off keeping Couturier at this point, as long as he's willing to play that role going forward.
Anthony, we'll let you go on this one quickly. What do you think? Are you surprised that John Tortorella is back? You covered him for 3 years in Philadelphia. Are you surprised to see Torts back in the league?
This whole thing, all these late coaching changes and GM firings, it's got me utterly perplexed. Like, I don't know. I look at Vegas and I think that they lack a lot of things that you need to win a Stanley Cup. And I don't necessarily know if going from Bruce Cassidy to John Tortorella is going to make that big of a difference. I think it's a situation where that division is really weak, and Vegas looks at it and goes, well, we can at least get to if we make this change, it'll jumpstart the team, and we can at least get to the conference finals and see what happens. And I think that that's kind of what they're looking to do. Yeah. Like that one makes a little bit more sense to me than the Islanders. Whereas I look at the Islanders, I say, yeah, you have a great goalie, you have a kid in Schaefer who's playing out of his mind, is going to win the Calder. But they probably were playing way over their heads for much of the season. Like, why are you firing Patrick Waugh to try and make a run? Like, where are you going with this team in this postseason? Like, you're not beating Carolina. You're not beating a team from the Atlantic. Like, that one makes less sense to me. So, yeah, and but it's still a surprise that you would do it at this late a juncture. If you were thinking about getting rid of Bruce Cassidy, you should have done it during the Olympic break when the coach would have time to put their system in place. I don't know how you're putting it in when you're barely practicing.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, it'll be fiery. It'll always be interesting when John Tortorella, and it's always interesting when Anthony Sanfalippo joins us here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. He's been doing it for years, probably over a decade, actually.
Yeah,
so we always appreciate when you give us your time and your insight. Thanks, Anthony.
I love coming on the show with you boys anytime. I wish we played Winnipeg more regularly so we can do this more regularly. But it'll be good. I'll be watching tonight, and hopefully you guys get a good game up there.
All right. Thanks, Anthony. We appreciate it. There he goes. That's Anthony Sanfalippo on Pattison and Snow the Goalie podcast. Connor, we're almost at the 11 o'clock hour, and we still haven't even done a commercial. I haven't even talked about the Moose. We haven't talked about prospects. Drew threw off the whole show. I had it all planned out minute by minute, but we'll go to our last commercial break. We'll come back. We'll have some final thoughts, and then I will join you after the hockey game. But let's go to our final commercial break of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show this morning.
Thank you.
Whoops.
Oh, there we go.
We somehow came back.
Thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money.
So much of your money.
Now you might have questions like,
Do our profits benefit your community?
No.
Or bet with Play Now. Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime. Visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Centre.
Boys, I've made an important life decision, and I need your support.
Oh boy.
I've decided to get a grill.
You mean a barbecue grill for cooking? Like, that's not an important life decision, Ezzy.
No. A grill for my teeth.
A grill for your teeth? Do I even want to know why you're doing this?
It's simple, really. Every time I go to Holt Dental, I get treated so very well by Dr. John and his team that I need to keep finding additional reasons to go back. I rely on Holt Dental for all of my dental needs, and they do it all, from regular cleanings to cosmetic dentistry. Plus, they have free parking at their front door, and you know how much I love my convenient parking.
For all your dental needs, Illegal Curve recommends Holt Dental, conveniently located on Taylor Avenue near Grant Park Mall. For more information, visit them online at holtdental.ca.
For over 40 years, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has been Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy. Renowned in the comedy world as a must-play venue, Rumors has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers, wedding socials, and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase show tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
Hey Winnipeg, Joe Carter here. I look forward to joining you in Winnipeg on June 4th for the Rady JCC Ken Cronson Sports Dinner. See you in June. Don't be late.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
Welcome back. We are into overtime here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We were having such a good time with Anthony. Had to get in the question about John Tortorella, Connor. So we had a good chat. We were so thankful that Anthony was willing to join us and give his insight on the Flyers. Jets Flyers tonight at 6 p.m. After the game around 8:40. Join myself and someone else. We don't know yet, Connor. There will be someone else, I would imagine, on the Illegal Curve post-game show. And we want to thank Sarah Alleski joining us in the bottom half of the first hour. Although Sarah was upset, she realized after her internet wasn't working, so she messaged me saying, "I hope it was okay." She said she owes us a redo. So that means we
and
get
an
Sarah
apple
Alleski.
fritter donut.
And an apple fritter. That's what I should counter with. Just,
Yes.
we'll be fine with just the apple fritter donut.
Yes.
I should thank our sponsor, Play Now. They're the title sponsor of the show until April 17th. Earn a $5 sports bonus bet for each Jets power play goal. Anthony did say that PK wasn't very good for the Flyers, so maybe they'll score 1 or 2 tonight. Scored when you place a qualifying same game parlay wager on a Jets regular season game. Conditions apply. Bet with Play Now, the only official betting partner of the Winnipeg Jets. 18 plus. Enjoy responsibly. All right, Connor. Well, some final thoughts. We should mention, of course, a couple things to think about, a couple things to talk about. Those Manitoba Moose. Maybe I'll talk about it more tonight, especially if I'm doing a solo cast. I'll definitely be talking about it tonight.
For sure.
But the Manitoba Moose, they clinched earlier. We already talked about that on one of the last post-game shows. Had a terrible showing against Milwaukee in the follow-up game, lost 7-0. Against Texas, down by 4 with game in hand. They had 5 games remaining. Texas had 4 going into last night's game, hosting the Texas Stars, and they had a great start. 4-0 for the Manitoba Moose to start the game. They give up a late power play goal in the second period. You're like, okay, it's 4-1, not the end of the world. Then with 1 second in the second period left, Thomas Milic gives up an absolute stinker, and it's 4-2. And you're like, oh, that's not so good. If 4-1, you'd think they're going to lock it down. 4-2, not so good. They score with about I think 9 minutes into the period to make it 4-3. And now you're like, oh boy, are the Moose going to be able to hold on? And then with 6 seconds to go, the Moose had a chance. Mason Shaw, Walker Duehr along the wall. They can't get the puck out. Texas keeps it in. They score the tying goal with 6 seconds to go to send it to overtime. The Moose actually take a bench minor, have to kill a penalty. They kill the penalty in overtime, Connor. And then in the shootout, Nikita Chibrikov scores a beauty on the backhand. And Danny Zhilkin, as I mentioned earlier in the broadcast, almost 2 hours ago, he scores the shootout game winner. Thomas Miller did come up big, made 2 saves in the shootout. So the Moose do win, but they only gain a single point. They do put some more points between them and 5th place Milwaukee. So that's good news, but not ideal for the Manitoba Moose. We got from Colby Spence, our photographer, Connor, that some of the guys, including Tyrell Bauer, were skating out at Hockey for All Center. And then they wrap up their home season finale, regular season finale tomorrow afternoon. It's their fan appreciation game. So I don't know. I know that I think it was approaching over 5,000 for that game. But if you want to go check it out, I think it's a 2:00 start. That will be a lot of fun. And they're giving a lot of stuff away to fans.
Yeah, that will be super fun. I can't believe that a late second period goal against came back to bite the Manitoba Moose. This organization truly is aligned, Dave. As how many times have we seen the Winnipeg Jets suffer a late second period goal against and then blow it in the third? But no, good for them to persevere, I guess, through. I mean, you blow the lead, you have to kill a penalty in overtime, and you still end up winning in a shootout. So coming off that 7-0 loss the other night, to Milwaukee, good to see them at least get off to a good start. You don't want to see them blow it, but at least they got away with the win in the shootout, and they're back on track. And that fan appreciation game should be a good one for sure.
Yeah, and Beer League's asking if the 73-point Moose are guaranteed to play the 103-point Griffins in the first round. Well, right now, that's why the Moose beating Texas is so important, because if you get to Texas, if you get ahead of Texas, you get into third, you avoid that juggernaut Grand Rapids team. And with Detroit looking more and more like they're not going to make the playoffs, they might even get some ads back from the Red Wings. So I don't know who's eligible to be returned, but Grand Rapids is fearful enough without all those players. So that is why catching third is so important. But again, you still also have to play the play-in series. So if they finish 4th, they would host the Milwaukee Admirals in the play-in series. But again, the Moose do have a bit of an advantageous schedule. If they can beat Texas on Sunday clean and be only 1 point back, they play Chicago and Iowa to end it. And I think Texas plays Rockford, who have been playing much better of late. They're not going to make the playoffs, but they have been playing better. So it could be interesting down to the run. But yeah, no question about it. If you're the Manitoba Moose, you want to get into third and play the Chicago Wolves and not the Grand Rapids Griffins when the playoffs, that round of the playoffs begins. So that is the Moose situation right now. Again, they finish the home season regular season finale tomorrow afternoon here in Winnipeg, and then they go on the road to the final 3 games. And the last thing, Kieran Walton, people are asking about Kieran Walton. He's not even with the team officially. I believe I think he's in Winnipeg. I'm going to find out, but it's very unusual because Peterborough's season already came to an end. I want to say 7 or 8 days ago. So I'm a little surprised that again, they don't need him. I don't even know if he'll play right now based on the current circumstance and with all the new guys they've got in, but we'll see. And I would imagine he's going to be around the team. Again, my expectation is he turns pro next year. So I would be surprised if they don't want him even just to be around getting some more practice time in. Anyways, that's the Moose latest. And the only other thing worth paying attention to, if you want to, before the Jets game, is the national championship game down in Vegas, NCAA. Yes. Garrett Brown, the 2022 fourth rounder of the Winnipeg Jets, the right shot defenseman who had the game-tying assist late in that third period against Michigan, and then they won in double OT. He is going for his second national championship. His team won 2 years ago. Zach Naring's Western Michigan won last year. So the Jets could have another, well, even though he's already a national champion, him again. So that's your prospect update. And of course, Kevin He, Edison Engel, they were both in action last night in the OHL. Engel and his Brantford Bulldogs won. Kevin He and his Flint Firebirds, Connor, suffered their first loss of the postseason. He was limited to an assist. So that is that's the latest with the prospects. I think I brought everyone up to date. Now we got to say thanks to all of our other sponsors, because we thank everyone for joining us this morning. We thank Connor for giving us overtime and all this time, but a big thank you to all the sponsors of the Legal Curve who make the post-game show, who make the Saturday show, and of course the website at legalcurve.com. A possibility they are in no particular order, although Frosty has them in an order. They are, in no particular order on my mind, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club, Play Now, Holt Dental, City Place, Wheatland Hockey, Boston Pizza, and the Rady JCC Sports Dinner with keynote speakers Joe Carter and Cito Gaston. That's taking place on Thursday, June 4th, 2026. Tickets available, radyjcc.com. Support these fine businesses because of their continued support of Illegal Curve Hockey. All right, Connor, I'm already exhausted. I'm going to need the rest of the morning and afternoon off, and there's plenty of Jets content already on illegalcurve.com. We thank Connor. Connor, when are folks going to next be able to see you in action?
Yeah, thank you for having me, Dave. I love being on the Illegal Curve show. This is an absolute blast. Spending 2 hours talking Jets, nowhere I'd rather be on a Saturday morning. Going to go enjoy some of this amazing weather that we're finally getting here
19
in the city.
Apparently on Wednesday. I learned that in the chat. Thanks to
We're back. We're back. This is playoff weather. This is spring. We're back. We're so back. So I'm going to go enjoy that. And yeah, tomorrow morning, WST Sunday Live, 9 a.m. Liz Hood and I go live on the Winnipeg Sports Talk YouTube channel. So join us then. We're going to have full reaction to tonight's game, Jets, Flyers, and all of the out-of-town scoreboard watching that we'll be doing, where the Jets sit tomorrow. Could be, season's over, LA won, Jets lost, it's over, or LA loses, Jets win, and they're 1 point out kind of thing. So be sure to join us tomorrow morning, WSC Sunday Live, 9 a.m. right here on YouTube. Same place you go to watch the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, WSC Sunday Live on the Winnipeg Sports Talk channel. Thanks, Dave.
There you go. That's Connor Rabchak, not her Rabchak, Drew, and his high quality WST content. Anyway, thanks, Connor. We appreciate it. Thank you for joining us here on this morning's Saturday morning Illegal Curve Hockey Show. 2 hours of hockey talk done. We've still got more coming your way after the Jets game. And we will see everyone after that. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Thanks for joining us here this morning.